Schecter. Is the Michigan man. Very creative, as you can.
And there we are. Woohoo!
I never know if David's going to jump in first. I love it. Hey, this is the show. It's called Amped Up with Cliff Schecter, but it's also with David Schecter.
I am honored, Cliff, in honor of us, I guess, going to war with Venezuela. I'm wearing my camo-colored Under Armour shirt because solidarity.
Nice. You want to make sure to protect yourself and all.
That's right.
We're going to get into that, folks. The outrageous way that I think David and I may have to collect these speeches, statements, tweets from all of the anti-war Republicans who ran on being, you know, how isolationist they were and war is bad and foreign wars and the Bushes and the Clintons and the neoliberal, neoconservative, neo-Jew establishment got us into all of them with their Jewish lasers and their Jewish Judaism. And I'm sorry, I'll stop.
And Donald Trump was going to get the Nobel Peace Prize. I guess this is what happens when he doesn't get it. Hey, Cliff, before we get into that, I guess there's some news about Blue Amp Media, and that is we have a new way of us and all of our members of the community protecting ourselves, right?
That is very true. And actually with the Venezuela news, more important, but I would say more important even for folks with a lot of the hacking that's going on, cyber hacking. I mean, when we're talking about Venezuela here, we're you know, we often are talking about China, Russia, other folks like that. And honestly, David, have you ever had your, I'm going to ask you, have you ever had your identity stolen before?
Yeah. I mean, not in a super serious way, but it was pretty annoying.
Yeah. I mean, from what I hear, like actually it can be much worse than just annoying if when it comes to people who like they steal everything. I didn't have the full thing happen, but I literally had somebody get enough on me to create a fake credit card in my name, and use it in parts of Asia, where I hadn't been at that point in like 5 years. So it was impressive work. So we just want to let you know, guys, today's show is sponsored by Nord Protect. I'm sure you are familiar with Nord products, right? VPN is a big one. This is Nord Protect, and this has to do with protecting yourself. And in today's digital world, with the insanity and hackery and the rest, I think it's more important than ever. Listen, I actually tried the product, added it, and tried an email address that I haven't used in a bit, and right away it told me that it had been compromised, and that's not a joke. So not one I've used recently, okay, but it still might have important information that I might not want others to have. And guess what? It had been compromised, and I knew that within a minute of setting up Nord Protect, which is why it's important. So, you don't know what information is floating around about you out there. You don't know who's gotten into your old emails, obviously plenty of other accounts. And this is what Nord Protect does for you. Basically, it is all-in-one identity theft protection, real-time credit alerts, important. You kind of want to know that stuff right away. I just told you the story about the credit card. I don't think these were the olden days. I don't think I knew about it till like 3 days later. It had to take the Pinta or the Santa Maria over, I believe, David, at that point in time. But I think it was like early 2000s. But today, you get all-in-one identity theft protection from Nord Protect, dark web monitoring. That's become an issue. What misinformation and disinformation is put out about you on the dark web by some of these sleazy characters out there. And it basically is step-by-step guidance if something goes wrong. And if the worst happens and somebody steals your identity, what you need to do, because it is a hassle. I've had friends have it happen well beyond what happened to me or David, where you have to fill out so much paperwork. You have to change so many things about yourself. You have to go places and prove you are who you are. And that is not an easy process. So
I understand, Cliff, that all you have to do is go like this with one of these things up to the QR code, and then you get the discount, and you just put in the code Blue Amp, and you're taken care of.
Yeah, and it covers you. Look, it's basically it covers you for up to $1 million in identity restoration support. $1 million is a pretty big number. Again, these things can be expensive. You may need lawyers. You may need God knows what. So it gives you $1,000. Let's call it like insurance. It helps you with fraud, cyber attacks. Again, everything that we're talking about here. Oh, as they make sure to mention here, even extortion. Um, so that's good. There's some bad people out there who do that kind of stuff, and I'm tempted to make some jokes about people we're going to talk about today, but I will not, because this is all serious: fraud, cyber attacks, extortion, identity theft. So I will tell you, again, tried it out, saw that it worked in an email right away. I couldn't endorse it any more strongly. Cybersecurity experts do the same. Protect yourself right now. Go to nordprotect.com/blueamp. David was saying it, and that should be on your screen. nordprotect.com/blueamp, and use the code blueamp. We didn't want to get too tricky on you there, and you'll get an exclusive discount just for using the code blueamp. And you have a 30-day money back guarantee. So for some reason you don't like it, though I do not think that will happen, you can actually get your money back within 30 days. So folks, do it. Protect yourself now. Seriously, this is a brave new and crazy world, and we're all at risk for this kind of thing. Get nordprotect/blueamp, use the code blueamp, and then
and you know what, Cliff, I love about, the products, whether it's NordProtect or others, is that, if you're going to choose to spend money on something like this, might as well spend it on a corporation, a company, or a business that is actually helping us in independent media. And so,
I think that's an important point to make too, David, which is we talk about this stuff all the time, folks. I'm not going to go into all sorts of details here, whatever, but when people sometimes who subscribe to certain people that, let's say, were some of the most awful people in the world as recently as 2 years ago, but like they're suddenly like, I don't like Trump anymore, and everybody runs and supports them. Or, as opposed to independent media where we've been fighting this fight forever. The same thing when it comes to certain, folks who support us by sponsoring us. They are sponsoring this show. And NordProtect has shown they are willing to step out and sponsor an independent media show like this, where we talk about things that we think are important. And you, by clicking on the link, can show your support for us and for them for supporting independent media. And then by actually getting the product, because it is a good product. So I don't know what more you would want.
No, and Cliff, I know you and I've been preaching for years that, and more and more Americans are doing it, that you can every day, in terms of, you can use your wallet or your pocketbook in terms of promoting your values. So by doing a little bit of research on what organizations and companies sort of align with you, that's where you spend your money, and by doing that, we affect change as well. So whether you're choosing which gas station to go to, which convenience store, which kind of store to get our tools, whatever it is, which airlines, there are value differences with each of these organizations.
No, and that's exactly right. And I get it, because it sucks sometimes. We are in such a monopolistic economy that we are all sometimes now forced, just because there's no choice, to buy things from bad actors. But every single time you can avoid it. I can tell you for a fact, most of you probably know, for example, the difference between Costco and Walmart.
Yeah.
One that pays their workers very generously, that would be Costco, gives them health insurance, and one that would be Walmart, that literally are I'm sorry, but I compare it to a plague of locusts that go from town to town and destroy. They do. I know you're smiling, and it's sort of, but they do. They destroy everything in their wake. Small businesses, they shut down. Deindustrialization has led to some of this, and Walmart's taking care of the rest. To turn downtowns to boarded up buildings, empty streets, that kind of thing. And that's because they don't pay anybody anything, but they can discount the hell out of everything because of the purchasing power they have. And they're a freaking monopoly.
And I guarantee everybody out there, when you make a conscious decision about how you spend your money, or which media you support, or whether you pay for a subscription to Blue Amp Media or somebody else, I guarantee that once you do that, you will feel better. Like, I feel better every time that I, decide, I'm going to this gas station and not that one, or I'm going to Costco and not Walmart, or I'm going to give a subscription. I'm going to pay for a subscription to this Substack and maybe not this other one. That act of doing that, it actually makes you, it's kind of like voting, right? You know how good you feel when you vote? It's the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, the minute that the New York Times, I mean, once Hillary's emails and and then the combination of Hillary's emails, they found no connection between Trump and Russia like a week beforehand because McGonigal fed that to them, the dude that was running the office in New York, and then he was arrested for colluding with Russia or whatever he was doing with Russia. And then the final straw right after the election when they were going on safari trips, of course, to Ohio. They're Jane Goodall trips, like we were some weird species because Ohio had voted more in that direction, and it was sort of like, why don't you go maybe and when Hillary won the popular vote and speak to black voters in cities and see how they feel about the fact that their votes didn't count apparently because you installed these guys. So some neo-Nazis were won over. In any case, I dumped them and I told everybody, get the Philadelphia Inquirer because it's owned by a private foundation that is progressive, was the only newspaper that said after that first debate between Biden and Trump and all these newspapers were calling for Biden to drop out, said Trump is a danger to the country and he's a serial liar. He should get out. And that's because they're one of the few that is not owned by a terrible corporation. Cleveland Plain Dealer, same thing. You do that stuff. I would argue for our Substack now, our growing and important and story breaking. And I mean, you get me and David here, Lawrence Winterman, who puts all this together and also a brilliant writer, Dana Dubois, a brilliant cultural writer and helps us book folks, Ellie Leonard and Melissa, who are just freaking Corrigan, I should have said her last name, are killing it with the stories they're breaking. You want to support people that are doing that kind of thing and don't apologize. I think you all know between me and David, we don't make excuses for people on the other side. I'm more likely to call them any number of four-letter words, though I like my insults to be multi-syllabic and kind of hyphenated. If I can have an insult go on for a whole line, I like it. But I'm going to get back to it. I saw someone in there say, whoever the guy on yesterday was saying something good about Walmart. I think it was Amethyst Pony. Matt Robeson held he does his here on Tuesdays. I don't know who his guest was. I can't speak for that guy or gal. I don't know who it was, but it wasn't me. You will never hear me. I've been in a Walmart, I think, honestly, twice, 3 times in my entire life. Like I went to one, there are a few times where a few prescriptions I needed were out everywhere else. And honestly, I felt like putting on a hazmat suit. I felt so dirty even walking into a Walmart. Like Walmart feels gross to me.
And you normally feel pretty dirty anyway, right?
What'd you say?
You normally feel pretty dirty about yourself anyway, right?
Oh my God, all the time. I'm despicable. And then I get even worse going there. Home Depot will not go to. They're crazy. I mean, again, like sometimes I have to buy a book on Amazon. It sucks. I think they should break Amazon into a billion pieces. But guess what, guys? My cousins have an independent bookstore in Massachusetts. We've done ads for them before. And I should look them up right now and let you know where to find them because they're awesome. We're going to do ads for them more in the future. Like you want, I might not get the right name. I want to wait. I'll get it from them. But you want to buy from these kinds of places. So if you can, and here to end where we began, Nord Protect is our folks that stepped up and said, we want to sponsor this show. So beyond what they can do for you, which is protect you, it's in the name, support people out there that support us, right? That and I say us, I mean all of us, not just me and David. And support only people that support me and David.
Well, that's right.
Okay. If they like us, support anybody else. No, seriously.
So Cliff, we got a lot of news out there. Should we bring, is Hal in?
Hal is not showing up yet, but Hal has to switch over from his show. They did a raid here, so thank you.
I want to ask you the question then I was going to ask Hal, and I was asking Lauren.
That makes me feel good.
And nice for Barbara to say, and now subscribe to the Philadelphia Inquirer and Cliff's advice. Excellent.
Just subscribe to us too, Barbara. That's all we ask. And then thank you for doing that because, again,
so one of the media choices we will all be able to make tonight if we're going to watch President Trump's speech where I think he's going to talk about, well, I'm going to ask you what you think he's going to talk about, but just in where we watch Trump's speech. Do we watch it on cable? Do we watch it on broadcast? Do we watch it on YouTube streaming? If you think for just a few seconds about it, that choice also matters because each of these organizations might have their own ads or whatnot. So even that act of saying, you know what, I'm going to watch Donald Trump's speech through a C-SPAN or free stream or whatever. That's
Newsmax is where I'm going to go.
But Cliff, it sounds like we're going to war with Venezuela. Is that your sense about what the speech is about tonight?
I think it has to be. I mean, we are now blockading them. Every one of us, folks, and this is a project for everybody in the, in the chat here. I'm hoping, and I'm throwing this at David. He's not ready for this, but maybe we can get a video together on all of the times that every single one of these fake, full of shit MAGA Republicans ran and claimed they were anti-war and pretended they were isolationists. Because again, the only thing they don't believe in is working with other countries like a NATO partnership, or going in and providing aid to those who need it by preventing a genocide, which is the only time I ever think we should be involved in an action that's not a defensive action as part of a multilateral coalition, like what we did way too late in Rwanda and even a little too late, somewhat too late in Bosnia. Those are sort of the only times I think. But these guys, they don't believe in that, because we don't get anything out of that. Stay home and ignore what's going on, or go in somewhere as long as they've got oil you can steal. And that's in the end what this is about. I'm sure the oil guys, they're always involved somehow behind the scenes. They want that oil badly, and I'm going to guess that he's going to stand up. Remember, he knows the buzzwords. He said it was Iranian oil before. He'll find a way to connect them to Iran. He'll find it, or Al Qaeda. I mean, this is going to look like Iraq all over again. He will connect them to the worst enemies, the ones that he's, not our actual worst enemies, although Iran is an awful theocratic state. But he'll connect this just to the ones that he doesn't like Iran, not Russia, China, others that he's in bed with.
And the giveaway, Cliff, that this is not about drug interdiction, and this is not about somehow stopping the flow of drugs in the United States. All you have to do is look at the Vanity Fair piece from Susie Wiles, Donald Trump's chief of staff, and she said this is not about drug interdiction. In a moment of candor, there were several moments of candor in this piece. She said this is about regime change. This is about trying to convince Maduro to leave. So why would Donald Trump want to convince Maduro to leave? Well, one of the reasons is because, as Jonathan Larson's been reporting, and we've had some reporting ourselves, one of the reasons that the Trump administration is so intent on trying to get rid of the Maduro regime is because there are two sources that are feeding information to the Trump administration. And these are sources that claim that, the Maduro regime is sending these Tren gang members into the United States to wreak havoc, that they're deliberately poisoning the United States, that Venezuela is working with Iran and China and North Korea and Russia. These are the two same sources that were feeding information to the Trump campaign in 2020, claiming that Venezuela was responsible for the rigged election in favor of Joe Biden. And even the Trump campaign had an internal memo that it quickly wrote, as Jonathan Larson reported, saying this is absolute bullshit. Well, these are the two sources that are feeding this information to Donald Trump, and we're about to go to war, possibly put boots on the ground in Venezuela because of these clowns. One is a former, CIA agent. Another one's an operative in Venezuela. And by the way, both of them stand to make millions to benefit financially if, in fact, there is regime change. So, follow the money, connect the dots. It's like Iraq's curveball all over again. And curveball was the source who claimed that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, when it turns out that guy had a financial incentive to lie through his teeth.
Yes. So I was listening to everything you said. I got a text from Hal. I don't know if they thought the link was going to be texted. I made sure they knew. I'm telling Andrea, who's awesome, that the link was in the email, right, Lawrence? I know you can hear us, Lawrence. I don't know if.
Well, and look, while you do that, a little bit more about Venezuela. So the latest news is that, there was a lot of news last week, of course, because of the September 2nd strike and the first Venezuelan drug boat. And there was a follow-up strike that killed the two survivors. Some members of Congress have seen the video and describe it as graphic and horrific. And yesterday, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said, no, the Pentagon is not going to be releasing this video to the public of the close-up, even though Donald Trump has said, of course, we'll release it. Because Hegseth says, we're concerned about releasing classified information, as if Pete Hegseth, who put information on Signal Chat, is concerned about classified information. This is simply to try to make sure that the American people are not inflamed by how graphic and macabre the video is of people close up in the video being shredded with a blood stain being left on the burning hulk of this boat. The other news, as you mentioned, is that the United States is now seizing oil tankers that are coming from Venezuela. the oil tankers are not filled with cocaine or fentanyl. This is
Huh.
simply, as you point out, another act
Well,
of aggression by the United
he
States.
just
Come
gave
out.
a pardon to a large, like one of the biggest Honduran drug dealers. I mean, again, this is all laughable on its face. He's pardoned at least a half dozen people that have been involved. That kid that was involved with the dark web and all that crap, who was trafficking drugs in here. I wrote a piece about him way back when. I can't remember his name. You know, this Honduran drug lord. I mean, you know, maybe it's like the rumors. The price is 1 million, although that seems low for Trump to get a pardon. But he doesn't give a shit about drugs coming in here. This is an excuse. And as you said, there's three, you know, that I can see, there's four things going on here. One, you named it, like that Jonathan Larson's reporting. Donald Trump is not sane. He is a crazy person. And let's just start talking about this convicted felon the way he should be. He is not there mentally. So he has never been able to handle any kind of a loss because he's indeed an unbelievable loser and loses at everything, and therefore gets insecure. And he must, you know, if you tell him he wanted something, you tell him what he wants to hear. So these two expatriates told him he really won the election, and Maduro, I don't know, rigged it, and the ghost of Hugo Chavez and who the fuck knows what else somehow found a way to steal votes from our machines from Venezuela. It's so patently ridiculous that it just tells you his mental state. Second thing, big pile of oil. These guys, this is what they always want, especially Trump, who's tried to ban, you know, wind farms, and the court overturned him. Wants to get rid of any clean energy because the oil guys he knows can, you know, can pay him off something fierce. Third, it's Venezuela, and they're brown. And he's a racist. He's always been a racist from the days he marked C for colored on rental applications, where he and his dad got sued by the Department of Justice in 77, 8, whatever, for refusing to rent to black applicants in their, you know, and so what's killing some brown people to him? It's target practice. It's fun because he's a racist and a sociopath. And the fourth thing is, if you saw our national security strategy document, that really should be getting a lot more attention, where Trump rejected the 70-year global order as we've had it. It has produced peace and prosperity beyond our wildest dreams. I'm not saying there haven't been any problems. The NATO alliance has prevented more wars than one can imagine. It's led us to trade with these partners and have better relationships. And what they want, these dictators, is they want to go back to the days of where they had their little fiefdoms and everything around them, like Ukraine sitting there next to Russia, and Taiwan next to China, and whatever becomes your sphere of influence, and you get to stake to do this. And this is Trump asserting that belief too, or his people. He's not smart enough to know what a sphere, much less a sphere of influence is, but you know, they are saying Venezuela belongs to us, just like they'll say Canada does when they want to go in there, or Greenland, or Mexico, or any number of places, depending upon what their interest is in invading those places. And so it's all this combined. And I see the great, wonderful, and not lacking hair, Hal Sparks. I don't hear him.
I don't know if you can hear me, but I can't hear you yet, but I'm working on it.
Okay, we can now
I think
hear
you. Can hear me though, which is a start, and that's all I ask, really. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, Hal.
Give me one
Welcome.
split second, and I should be able to solve this with just a couple of flicks or something.
It's cool because it's like the middle of our show.
We're going to add one more
Let me
thing to your
grab
list.
these guys, and I think
it's like the middle of
at some point, unless I just have you guys muted because it just my better nature
don't like
has
us,
taught
Hal?
me that it's probably
We can
a good
say whatever we
idea.
want about Hal.
Okay,
like, why, as Zoltan
hey,
dude, where's my car? Why did he not?
Solved it.
Wait, can you hear us now?
Solved it. Yes, I can.
I was
Hal
saying I could say
start over
whatever
at the
I
beginning
wanted
where you're
about
talking-
you. So I was going to ask questions, and I was starting to say, why did Zoltan in Dude, Where's My Car not end up killing both of those annoying assholes? That's where I was starting off.
Height largely. My character was actually even shorter than I am, so that was part of it.
Okay, that's a challenge.
Yeah, that was the primary one. Also, I mean, I had the ability to destroy the entire world because I was the only person who knew how the continuum transfunctioner worked. But I chose better, and I think that's a lesson we can all.
I think today that's a lesson we all need, isn't it?
Nespa. Yes.
Yes.
So,
I mean,
hi, David. By the way, big fan.
Hello,
Good to
Hal.
see ya.
Welcome.
It's been a bit.
Welcome. Good to have you on the show.
Thanks.
Yeah.
For people who
especially
don't
how
know,
I was going to say, you know, like
Yeah.
when you asked Spider-Man about his junk in the elevator and whether it was tight on him, his outfit, that also was you reaching out, not physically, hopefully, but you were
Well,
reaching out and being kind and trying to make sure he was comfortable and okay. And why can't we just do that too?
yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to check in on everybody's junk. I mean, there's way too much. This is a heavy news cycle. I'm just saying. It's not that I won't.
I know. I just have to because Melissa Corrigan went on her show and it was hilarious when she was like all her
Yes.
kids were so excited because of lab rats because of the various ages of her kids. And I was
Right.
just joking. I'm like, for my kids, it's not lab rats, man. They always like, is he the one who asked Spider-Man about whether his suit fit his junk in the elevator? I'm like,
Yep.
that's him. That's him. Yeah.
Gotta love improv.
That's right.
Yeah, I only got that job because no actors in LA can improvise. Yeah.
Well,
at
so
that time.
I just want to say for people who may be watching us who don't know Hal Sparks, and there may be a couple of people out there, Hal is an actor, comedian, broadcaster, radio host, all around
Musician.
good guy. And so, Hal, we were just talking a moment ago about the news with Venezuela, and Donald Trump is speaking to the nation tonight, presumably about that. What do you make of what Donald Trump is up to and what he's going to say tonight?
I think he's got very few areas where he can successfully wag the dog where maggots might come along, and it's not going to be the Middle East because that's if you think primarily their big hang up about no forever wars. What they really mean, I think, with the forever wars things is not wars that go on forever. They mean religious wars where they just let there be a winner and we'll clear out and make a deal with them after the fact. And so when it comes
or
to
maybe a part of the world where they don't understand what the time zone is, it may be part of that.
Yeah,
too.
or it just seems impossibly far away.
Exactly. Who can go there? That's like going to the moon. I mean,
the drug war is one of those things where he feels, because part of his brain froze in 1987. He feels like that's an area where he can coax his group over so that he can wag the dog a little bit away from the Epstein files, away from the affordability crisis, away from the fact that he just knocked 20 some odd million people off their healthcare or made it cost more. And so this is one of the few areas where he can do it. It's also an area where through this oil blockade, he can stop or at least limit to some degree the crashing price of oil for his buddies in the oil industry because there's an oil glut. And I
blocked
said
the supply,
year,
and so people out there, I think people understand the economics of that. Block some of the supply. There's less supply. The price goes up. So.
Right. There's it's below break even right now. Brent crude was at like $55. Their break even price is 60. If they're going to drill, they need at least 70. And so, and the Saudis tried to curtail the secondary OPEC plus countries into not, producing a ton of oil so that they could tighten the market and raise the price, because even the Russian oil being cut off did not affect the price of oil. It just stayed. And so it's been going down because everybody is expecting China to use all this oil and grow inexorably, and this growth was just going to go on forever, and it just hasn't happened, and it's not going to happen. So that oil is got nowhere to go, and these wells have been dug, and the drilling is not going to stop anytime. So what they've got to do is limit who can do it, hence bombing Iran and hence surrounding Venezuela. You got those are the two oil producers besides Russia that aren't currently curtailed by circumstances and aren't friendly.
Right. But I don't think, and David was saying this before, and we're good friends of our show. Guy you should have on at your show at some point. In fact, Jonathan Larson, he's actually was the executive producer for Chris Hayes back in the day and some other shows on various channels. And does some great investigative reporting and broke a story on here about on here being Substack, I should say, about these two right-wing expatriates who are playing the role of curveball, feeding Trump what he wanted to hear, that they knew for a fact that they had some, I don't know if it was a magic 8-ball or something of that nature, but they were manipulating the machines in this country to move votes in 2020 from Trump to Biden, because as you know, that's what Trump needs to hear so that he doesn't wake up in the morning and feel even worse about himself than he already does. Right. And that, so what Jonathan has said, and I think it's right, is I think what he wants to do is they want to get Maduro out of there. They want to get access to the oil, but I don't think, and I could be wrong, that they want to put troops on the ground, because if they do, the quagmire that will ensue, that always ensues. I believe you were pointing out on one of your maybe it was when I was on, I don't know if it was on your show recently, but they've already got militias there. They've already got drug cartels. Like, this is not something that needs to be created by us by firing Baathists stupidly, like we did in Iraq. We're like, yeah, everybody's run the government. We're just going to fire you. Oh, you all have weapons and are pissed off now?
Right.
There are cartels. I mean, this exists and already in gangs.
And they're intertwined in the government in enough a way that gives him enough plausible deniability to attack this. The problem is that, and there's a little bit of on land, on sea issue here, because if you blow up a boat in the water, nobody can ever tell you what was in the boat, right? It's on the bottom of the ocean. And if there were drugs at all, the seawater will dissipate it. There's no way to do a forensic accounting of it after the fact. That's not true of a truck. A truck driving someplace overland, and especially if it's not in Venezuela proper, if it crosses into another country and you've got to explain why you were firing on this Venezuelan truck that was driving through Chile or driving up through Central America or the Panama Canal or whatever they're, across there, whatever his excuse is going to be to try and, re-win the drug war from a 1987 action film, to play tough guy and distract. Because his people are not going to go for another Middle Eastern war. They don't believe that, in supporting Ukraine, but they can't stop it because I guess cooler heads in the Republican Party are prevailing to some degree. There was more money for Ukrainian support in the defense bill, the little addendum they just passed, and he signed it. So
a few of them were speaking out finally.
On Cliff's point about, Donald Trump and maybe some reluctance to actually put boots on the ground. And certainly there's a political reluctance among his core supporters not to be entangled. So there's a suggestion in some quarters that this is, again, one more effort by Donald Trump to try to scare Maduro, to try to get Maduro to leave voluntarily. Donald Trump, because of the speech, he's been seizing oil tankers, he's been blowing up boats. Do you buy into this idea that maybe at the end of the day it becomes, does Maduro blink or not?
No, because whether Maduro's in there, like anybody who follows in behind him, the cartel still exists. So Trump has to answer for the fact that he started the war because of this drug trade. And just because Maduro's gone doesn't get rid of that. If anything, it creates a chaotic environment.
Well, the vacuum.
It's a free-for-all.
Yeah,
right.
It could make it worse.
So, and again, the question is he really concerned about Maduro in this situation? Or is he, is this just a wag the dog in the restarting the drug war?
Well, maybe
but start the drug war again about cocaine and fentanyl.
Right. I mean, it also though could be that they want the oil and Maduro's not going to give it to them. So with Maduro gone, you're right. The craziest thing about his post was that Venezuela owes us for the land and the assets and the oil that they took or whatever. So what he's doing is enacting economic revenge on behalf of the oil companies that were in Venezuela that were, that lost their, and by the way, this is also an excuse to do this to Iran. I mean, if you look at how we got into trouble in Iran in the first place was BP was there and they, partnering with other oil companies in the world, they were splitting, 50-50 with the Iranians or 80-20, whatever it was. And they wanted all of it. Do we not owe them anything then for overthrowing their government, or that doesn't count in this calculation?
Well, in the case of
only whether companies got
well, the irony is Trump's lesson from it is that A, MI6 did it, and B, we should have. And we should have taken a piece of it. Remember, this asshole has actively said, keep the oil. We should go in there and we should fight these things.
Well, yeah, he said we should have done in those Middle Eastern wars, which is a war crime, stolen their possessions.
Yeah, it's like the king in Braveheart saying keep the women. At a certain point, that this is how his brain operates. The issue with Venezuela though is that they don't want that oil on the market. If it's oddly enough. The price is going to keep going down without, Venezuelan oil isn't in heavy circulation anyways. And so the attack on Venezuela, this embargo thing, is to keep the price of oil up, not to grab hold of that oil and pump it and send it out. And
if we grab it,
$5 a barrel.
I guess I'm thinking if we grab it, then we control it, right? And we can make sure nothing's getting out there.
I wonder if maybe the best case scenario, maybe I'm being too optimistic here, is that Donald Trump, he threatens, he blows up boats, he seizes oil tankers. Yes, just the mere threat of a war, that somehow perhaps causes oil prices to go up. And at a certain point, Donald Trump, maybe he gives deadlines, and then finally to save face, because he doesn't really want to put troops on the ground, after oil has been sort of stable at whatever it is, then Donald Trump says, okay, I've got to deal with Maduro. He's agreed to stop the flow of some of the drugs, some of the fentanyl. I've won. I've got a peace prize coming to me.
He's a very, very strong leader like Xi Jinping. You know, we've had great conversations. You know, I called him Little Rocket
he said
Man,
nice
but now
things
he's my
about
best
me.
buddy.
That's always the key phrase. He said nice things about me.
There's a couple of issues. I think you're right on some degree, certainly about not wanting boots on the ground. But at this point, between drone and missile strikes and the fact that we have ships there that can fire on any of these things with precision, the same way they're shooting at the boats, they're not dropping helicopters on these boats like they would do if the Coast Guard was doing it. They're just blowing them up.
Well, when you don't want to, don't concern yourself with following international law, and you're cool just blowing shit up. It's a lot easier than actually having to send in helicopters. And I think that part of it's true. And I would think that there would be. I mean, again, think of the folks there. Well, it doesn't matter who they are. Just one thing that you could unite all of them, whether they're Maduro, supporters, whether they're in various cartels, whether whoever. Every single person there who has a gun would love to take a shot at an American soldier and be able to claim they killed him. So putting troops on the ground.
That's why everybody uses drones, because they don't come home in flag draped coffins.
Right.
And Trump doesn't care. And he's not like the only reason you send in troops in a situation like that is if you care about civilian casualties and you want to claim an area of territory, or you're fighting against an actual force. Trump
or if there's something you want
care.
to steal,
You just want to blow it up.
Right.
If you just want to blow something up, you just do it and walk away. That's what's happening with these boats. Like in normal circumstances, we can outrun these boats. We can catch these boats. We can even surround them and stop them from escaping. We're not. We're just hitting them from the air. And of course, Hegseth just announced that they're not going to release the double tap shot because that would give away secrets and violate our national security. The first hit doesn't somehow, but the second hit does. And
first it's all cool, like a video game for them, but the second one,
the second one, the reason it affects national security is because it would be a win for our enemies if the head of the Department of War was being impeached or being sent to to prison. So I guess that would kind of help our enemies in theory. So that's his argument. Same thing with Trump and the Epstein files. Like if the other leaders in the world knew how up to his shoulders he was with Epstein, and there are all these pictures that come out and video and like the photos that Michael Wolff is talking about of him getting a lap dance from underage girls and basically having a stain on his lap and the girls are laughing at him. If those pictures got out, how would he sit in a negotiation for the American people? Like that's their argument. That's their entire basis for hiding this stuff.
Well, I want to talk about Epstein just a sec, but I mean, you're sort of more tied into the Rob Reiner world than we are. And I know that there've been, I suppose in, some surprise, there've been even like Nick Fuentes, like the most despicable person on the far right, has said that Donald Trump went too far. When Donald Trump
he's a Nazi.
That Rob Reiner essentially had it coming because he was anti-Trump. What do you make of Donald Trump's so narcissistic, just when you think
always about him
lower, Donald Trump dives even deeper. What do you make of this?
I think it's twofold. One is that he can't stand the idea that somebody else is getting the attention, sympathy, and support that he thinks he deserves. He wants to be a Hollywood star. He wants to be loved by the media. He wants celebrities to like him. And so when somebody else likes somebody else, he has this automatic switch that he has to denigrate them because people are dropping deuces on his star on the Walk of Fame and polishing Rob's. And he can't deal with that on the one hand. The other thing is, quite frankly, this is dementia. This guy's brain is tapioca now. And he is becoming that demented old man who can't control his basest impulses. And there may have been somebody that might have reined him in the first term as he had a little bit of this showing. I find it interesting that there was an article recently in part of this Vanity Fair stuff that they were talking about how Trump judges people by their genes. This was one of the things that he can tell whether somebody's good by their genes. And what he means is by whether they had rich parents or not. But
wait, is that an Eagle Jeans commercial or no?
Yeah, no. He wasn't talking about Sweeney. He was talking about genetics. And the thing is, his genetics point to addictive personality and early dementia. that's what his father died of. That's what dogged his brother, and it's what's gonna and to some degree, depending on what you believe about his drug use, whether he, his own like homemade recipe for Pervitin that he snorts all the time, apparently, according to people who worked on The Apprentice and the
Noel
like, or whatever.
Katzler has said that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And a bunch of people have witnessed this multiple times, and so he's like, he pats himself on the back for not drinking, but he's done he's obviously done way worse stuff to his system. That at this point his brain is cooked, and he has no sensor on this. The problem is he still got access to the nuclear football. The reality out here is that no matter what he said, if anything, it sharpened people's love, respect, and revere for Rob Reiner and Michelle, and what good people they were, and the good art that he put forward. Because you could say what you will about his sort of activist talking in his interviews, where he was very anti-Trump in that regard, and rightly so. I personally believe you have to have Trump derangement syndrome to vote for the guy, because you'd have to be nuts to think that Epstein's wingman would be the perfect guy.
I'm going to say one thing quickly here,
yeah.
Al, because I feel like I have to say this every time. Whenever they bring up this, Trump derangement syndrome, I mean, my response is, then I guess, I also have Son of Sam derangement syndrome.
Right.
I have Genghis
Ted
Khan
Bundy,
derangement
right.
syndrome. I have Adolf Hitler derangement. It's weird, disgusting, despicable, horrible, awful people that
it's also
kill and murder and rape and do all. For some reason, I hate them. I don't know what I must be deranged.
Yep, and I think David, you can probably attest to this to some degree, that there a lot of people magically get TDS when they've seen the evidence. That there are a bunch of people who worked with Trump back in the day, and they'd spend time with him, or they'd see the evidence that was clear, stuff that Mueller wasn't able to release, or whatever that came out, and suddenly all these people have TDS, and and you maybe chalk up a new infection in Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example,
right?
Or the maggots that are waking up.
In Epstein's letters, he said that
yes.
Trump was had no good qualities and was one
right.
of the
he had it because he was
worst
around
person
him.
he'd ever met. This is
when it
Epstein saying that.
So when it comes to Rob, I never got a chance to call Rob a dear friend, because I never spent that kind of time with him. But I got to share the stage with him on the Sexy Liberal tours, and I got to talk to him backstage at length. And as a huge fan of his work, from Stand By Me to especially Spinal Tap 1 and 2, which I would recommend everybody go check out the second one, because he's an adorable addition to that, as well as the regular cast. Always, to Harry Met Sally, to A Few Good Men, which interestingly enough,
A Few Good Men and like
chess beats
the American
all the time.
President, I can watch over and over and over again.
It was a beautiful guy who infused his values in his stuff without making it political. I would argue that his stuff was largely socio-political, that they were about the roots, not the fruits of the tree. And that's what I think comedy, that's when comedy has its greatest value, is that if we, it's one thing to make, politically savvy jokes. And there's, I do that with the Sexy Liberal tour, and we're going out next year for the leading up to the midterms again.
Are you going to invite us to join you?
I insist.
Because last time you had me up to Minneapolis, but at this point, like, I'm tied at the hip with David. So if I go, David has to go too.
I love the idea.
I don't exist without David anymore. That's just the way it works.
I'm for it. So, but when I do my regular stand-up, I would call it socio-political, in the least, that I don't name names and I don't talk about the details of it, but you show in allegory and in irony and in analogy what you're trying to say, so that you don't drive people away because buzzwords make them shut their ears. And Rob was very good at that in his art. And
I'll say quickly, it's probably going to come out tomorrow morning. I'm writing a piece right now, about sort of what Rob Reiner, how he, how exactly what you're saying, sort of looked at us as a people, the sociology behind the politics, and predicted certain, and I would say in some ways predicted certain futures. And if you look at how and I don't want to get into the specifics of it, obviously, but the fights that were going on in those two movies I named, The American President and in A Few Good Men, we're seeing that stuff play out right now. Jesus, like, can you get any more sort of ironic than the central part of A Few Good Men was the base in Guantanamo? I mean,
Well,
like,
and you want me on that wall, like, right? That you want me on that wall.
All of
You
that,
live on
I'm
that wall.
writing about that and what he was predicting these would happen. But David,
I want to say that, I mean, it just seems like what's come shining through is that Rob Reiner was just, for lack of a better term, he was just such a mensch, such a nice guy.
Yes.
I met him once in my career, and it was back in 2004. I was at MSNBC, and Rob Reiner and Martin Sheen were in New Hampshire before the New Hampshire primary. I don't even know if they were endorsing a particular candidate, but they were talking about some Democratic issue. And MSNBC said, go to Concord, New Hampshire, interview Martin Sheen and Rob Reiner. I was like, great. Well, Martin Sheen had said some pretty crazy stuff. And I remember this was a time when I was still, I don't know, something of an asshole at MSNBC. I mean, this is, I think I was always a nice guy, but I was giving Martin Sheen a really hard time. Like, I was really like with hypocrisy. And I look over
an asshole,
Rob Reiner, and Rob Reiner is giggling. He's laughing. He thinks it's hilarious that I'm giving his friend such a hard time on camera.
Right.
And I just thought, that's the kind of guy he is. Like, he sees the comedy, he sees the humor in things.
Well, the whole purpose is life. The whole purpose of doing this, the whole purpose of engaging in these, what you care about is so that people can get on with it. So people can put these things behind them. The political, and Rob was very much, as as a quote unquote activist, was very much into the voting part of it, the political aspect of do something that solves an issue for people so that we can consider it solved to some degree and move on to whatever next steps need to be improved on that.
He was coming from a liberal perspective. That is the one why I liked him so much, because that's the perspective I come from, which is I am a liberal, and you look up, what that means: openness, transparency, equality, these kinds of things. Why I call myself that, and that's what he was, because a transparent, open, equal government. If it's done that way, generally it will turn out right. It's when people grab gobs of power through either illegal or unethical methods, whether it's gerrymandering or what it might be, that we don't have the outcomes we should have. And he was at same thing with me. Like, I met him once, and it had to be for a minute. And he was just the nicest. I feel like maybe the media, they used to have the media reform conferences every year. I spoke at one of those, or it was Netroots Nation. I'm trying to remember what it was, but it was just one of those things where I just got to talk to him for a few seconds. And
he is a sweetheart.
I could tell how nice he was.
Across the board. And Michelle was lovely. Like, bless her heart. Like, I part of me, like, I'm still not over just the terror that they must have gone through and the horror of that circumstance. And we don't know the details of who he attacked first and all that kind of stuff.
But as that was happening, that must have been
the details of it. And I would argue, on the one hand, I always try to bring it back to where we are as our side of the aisle, what responsibility we can have in this situation. And I feel like Rob was a great example after Charlie Kirk died of recognizing the severity of the situation, and that you don't even play in that world of, you do not dismiss someone's murder or their death as a punchline. You don't, because it's got you have to live up to the standards you're trying to present to the world. And if you're no better than they are in that regard, now you don't have to mourn someone that you didn't like.
Or you don't have to deify
emotionally upset
what they stood for. Like, my thing that I always say is, I will never, just because it's right after someone dies, pretend they were somebody they were not. So I was not going to sit there and be like, Charlie Kirk was some terrific person. He was divisive. He held racist and sexist opinions. He was horrible. But at the same time, I was very clear to say, if we want a society without gun violence, we want a society without gun violence. No one at that age, no one ever should be gunned down like that. So
I would rather argue
tragedy. He has
with
kids.
a living person. I would rather argue with a living person than dunk on, the memory of someone who died foolishly.
And kids don't get to choose their parents. So what? Whatever you thought of him, and that was what I was trying to say, which is loathe the guy while he was alive, but what happened to him is horrific. And if we're the types of people that we claim to be, we need to rise above, certain base
Well,
impulses
this
and
applies
not
to-
want that to happen to
And
anybody.
that
applies
will
to
be a
David's-
challenge. I guarantee you that's going to be a challenge for a lot of us on the left when Donald Trump finally meets his maker.
Right.
Because,
No question.
I mean, his character, and to that end, I mean, I
Agreed.
think we're going to find out. We mentioned the Epstein files. I think we're going to find out even more starting in the next, 2 days when this stuff is released. We're going to find out even more about his character that I think is utterly going to be repulsive to most Americans.
Right.
And there's
right.
patterns. Look, there's, again, I find myself saying this a lot. There's a reason algorithms work. We're creatures of habit. There's
Mhm.
patterns of behavior. Donald Trump, I mean, what is it? 28 different women have charged him with either sexual assault or sexual harassment. His wife, once his first wife, obviously his late wife, charged, claimed in the divorce papers he raped her, and then she rescinded that. A 13-year-old sued him in court for rape and then rescinded it and said she did it because she was scared for her safety. He was actually found to be, by a judge, an adjudicated rapist. He bragged about there's the whole grab by the whatever thing.
Unrepentant sexual assaulter.
Right. I mean, all this paints a pattern. I'm sorry, but there's enough bullet points.
It's a good point. It's a good point. And by the way, that is partly why, and Trump is aware of this. Trump is okay. Think of all the damage that has been done to Trump around MAGA with the Epstein files from July 21st, when that memo came out, and like people exploded. Like even Charlie Kirk had to deal with this, and then one day said, "I'm just done talking about it." Was talking about it the very next day because his entire chat room exploded with like, "You can't drop this. This is one of the biggest reasons we elected this dude." Now he's saying the guy just killed himself in jail and there's nothing to see here and all that. They flipped out about that stuff. So he knows that, that whatever damage he suffered, part of his poll numbers going down amongst MAGA, almost.
No doubt. That's where it started.
Everything to do with Epstein.
That's where it started. It happened since then because, the usual pattern, which is people broke with him for that. I mean, it's a classic reason. That's what Marjorie Taylor Greene broke with him for. And then he insulted her and like he did other people. And then they were like, oh, by the way, the Obamacare subsidies are going to hit 50 to 60% of Trump voters and Republicans. You're crazy. We don't have an actual plan. So we need something else, and then it just started sort of increasing from that to where now you're seeing them vote against him on a variety of things. I mean,
and the Epstein thing, the point I want to make about the Epstein stuff is that as bad as it gets, think of it as the first domino, that it was so big, it knocks down the rest of the dominoes. It's a giant one compared to the other ones, which, it almost felt unmovable. Like these people will never leave him. They'll never stop supporting him. But the Epstein one was so big that it would push things. And you have to understand that Trump knows this. He knows that releasing certainly Bondi and the rest of them know what's in there, at least to the limited extent that they've seen it with the stuff that hasn't.
And
been
1,000
thrown out
FBI agents, which David broke a story on, and said that some of those agents have gone as whistleblowers. So in case some of this, some of
he knows
redaction stuff and it disappears, some of those guys have gone to House members or Senate members, and they're willing to. I don't know if they're willing to testify. David, it's your story, so
Well, I mean, look, the Justice Department, and it's so interesting that Susie Wiles, the Trump chief of staff, said that Bondi whiffed on the Epstein files. One of the reasons that she whiffed is that when Bondi was assigning these 1,000 FBI and DOJ agents to go through it, there were no controls in terms of compartmentalizing or access. So basically, for a few weeks, 1,000 people had access to everything before they
imagine the incompetence.
So there's 1,000 people there who DOJ and FBI who sort of know what's there. It would be against the law for them to go public. However, they can go to Congress and say, hey, this is being withheld or that's being withheld. But the other part about it is the legislation that passed, that passed both the House and the Senate, requires that when the Epstein files are delivered to Congress, even if they are redacted to the public, there must be unredacted versions that go to the House Oversight Committee so that the House can see what is being redacted and withheld. And so I think that, look, as of Friday, members of Congress, Democrats are going to have a good idea as to whether or not Donald Trump's administration has been honest and transparent in providing everything that's there.
Right. Well, also there's a parallel.
Just you saying him in those words makes. I'm sorry, I can't.
But there's a parallel to that. The estate has also given congressional Democrats a bunch of stuff, and they will be checking one-to-one some of these pictures, some of the stuff that they know is available via that source that there's obviously a copy of. And if the White House has just eliminated a couple of shots that are in the stuff from the Epstein estate, they're going to know that. But my point overall was that whatever's in there, he's willing to take the damage of not saying anything, of pretending nothing's there.
As his numbers fall.
Whatever, all the losses, all the like losing whatever 20% of MAGA in this project, that is better than what's actually in
that
the
tells
files.
you how bad it is. That's exactly
That's how
right.
bad it really is. And there's more than just what they have too. They know this as well, because one of the things that you're going to see when they release these files is references to stuff that was kept in New Mexico. They did not raid the New Mexico property. And they know that there was stuff there that may have been moved around. There may be even references in these files, whether the White House knows it or not, that is where stuff was moved around. And if it didn't have Trump's name directly tied to it, where copies of the compromat, because I don't know any blackmailer who would be so stupid as to have only one copy of something and not have a dead man switch.
Well, that's the thing. Again, and people initially said in this, to keep bringing this up, David, another thing that you reported, I mean, is that it was that more than one agency had this. So the question is, besides DOJ, who else has it? We know the guy was in contact, with Mossad. We know the guy was in, these aren't like conspiracy theories. These are facts. He was in contact with the KGB, other intelligence agencies, also with MI6. These things exist at other intelligence agencies. They exist at agencies of the United States. What David brought up about the fact that some of these people who saw this stuff can share it. There's just a million. And then the.
Yeah. Do you think $1 billion was the only thing he transferred to Russia in the 2 weeks before he died?
And the Epstein estate, which again has been so far releasing so many damaging documents and may have more. So, I mean, those are just some of the places like we can all think of. I'm sure there's other places.
I'll play this out for us. Let's just suppose that there's, incriminating photos or videos or really embarrassing stuff. How does it cut politically in 2026?
Oh, it's devastating. Like they're already on the edge. They've already seen some stuff where they're like, I've watched all these guys from, Benny Johnson to Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck takes a vacation week every time this stuff comes out and still tries to tap dance around it, and has Stu and his other co-hosts talk about it like, well, it's no big deal. And every single time as the stuff gets worse, as the pictures show up of like Epstein at his wedding with Marla Maples and just them partying together even more. Every time he says there was a deadline to them hanging out, then the big lie, I kicked him out for being a creep, when it turns out that didn't happen at all. And he was still a member of Mar-a-Lago till like a year before he died, like that kind of stuff. And he was hanging out there anyways. Right. So,
and they were fighting over real estate. They weren't fighting over anything.
Yeah.
It was
so
a real estate deal.
Every part of this, like it gets worse and worse, and they're having a harder time. Like I watched Benny Johnson go from "this is nothing, we've all seen this before" to, I don't know, not quite.
Was he when you saw him? Was he speaking in Russian or English?
No, he doesn't. He barely speaks English, much less
he does
foreign language.
English, I thought maybe there's somebody who maybe was controlling his mouth.
And have that YouTube translator.
8 weeks ago, Donald Trump said, well, if there's something there, it's because of, the Democrats have had it. It's AI. And so I keep thinking, okay, there's going to be a certain portion of the MAGA base who's going to believe this is AI. That's not really Donald Trump or the girls. This was, hijinks by the Democrats. There will be that percentage of the MAGA base. The question is how much of the rest of them are going to say, to hell with this guy.
Well, but if you think about it, and I don't want to cut you off here. I'll just say quickly, think about what we've already seen in these recent elections. Even if they didn't get one bit worse, even if they weren't screwing with the economy, even if and this, don't underestimate how important it is, because they've built up this whole sort of cult of macho, and this fucking loser's fallen asleep and things. He's got purple blotches in places where most people don't have places. And, he's literally, so he's getting weaker and mentally and physically before their eyes. Don't think that doesn't affect how they see him. Especially when he kept going after Biden for that very thing. And on top of all of that, as I said, the economy, the Epstein stuff comes out. So, I mean, in the end, he can claim AI here or there. He can't convince people that they have food in their mouths if they don't. He can't convince people they have health care if they don't, or job. And if everything keeps going in the direction it's going in, this will look like a high water point when it was only a 14 to 16 point Republican law.
Here's what I actually think is going to, if you will see anything, is that you will see Trump supporters and maybe even the Trump White House themselves flood the zone with AI generated images in and amongst the stuff. because it's not going to be.
Yeah.
And by the way,
Russia. You're going
yeah.
to see Russia and China
So
playing
the
a lot.
The Democrats will have to put all the stuff that they have on a website you can check out that's specific and that is verified, and that they will talk about that on the news ad nauseum. Like, don't trust what you see online. Some of the pictures of him are fake. If you want to see the real pictures of Donald Trump from the Epstein files, go to this website, and they or .gov, like a real website, and then you'll watch it go down because Trump will do something to make it crash, or or that kind of stuff. But it's gonna get out. They all know that. And
I hope the Democrats
conspicuously missing.
I hope the Democrats
missing. It'll be bad.
I hope the Democrats are that smart. I'm not confident that they are.
I hope they're that aggressive too. Again, get out there, get on the message immediately, connect this pedophilia ring of billionaires to the very billionaires who, by the way, all appear in the Epstein files. We don't know what they've done, but their names are in there. Musk, Thiel, all of them. Connect this, them and what they've done to this country, to that whole ring, because it's all part of the same just billionaires using people, and just chucking them away when they're done with them, destroying people's lives, whether it's economically, whether it's personally. If Democrats step forward with the kind of message that makes that connection, I mean, the thing is, David, like, they don't need to, if he gets away and he says it's AI, like, where they're sitting right now is if he lost 10% more of folks in MAGA, just 10%, we're now that D22 Tennessee district we didn't win in, we're now winning that district in 2026. We're winning.
Well, again,
we're winning in Arkansas statewide. Like, that's what you're looking at. I mean,
yep, I agree. And I think there's I've said this from the start that, like, the DNC has one job: turn red districts purple, purple districts blue. I don't give a damn if you turn a district that's bluer. It's not helping anybody. You keep the votes you have and you add to the game. Otherwise, you're wasting your money and your time. And the other thing is that in the case of, like, the maggots that are out there, we don't need them to see the truth. We don't need them to see the light. We just need them to see the lie. We need them to just either step down, stay home,
enough to stay home,
right,
and not vote. I mean, you just saw this right before the show. I think it was right before the show. Representative Newhouse from Washington State announced he's retiring. I don't know how many that is now, but I have to look at the latest counter. But those numbers are adding up. And when you look at them, Democrats on one side, I know you have to leave to get your kids soon, David, but Democrats on one side, Republicans on the other. I mean, it's hilarious. Like, you'll look and you'll see, like, Democrat leaving from Congress, right? And it'll be like Virginia ran for governor, New Jersey governor, running for Senate here, running for, like, the Democrats. The Democrats are retiring. There are a couple that are much older, like Nadler and a few people, but mostly it's people retiring because they're, like, they're running for higher office, Swalwell, right? That kind of thing. Whereas Republicans, there's a few of those, but the vast majority of the ones who are retiring, it just says R next to them for retiring. Like, they're leaving. They're getting the hell out of Dodge.
I got to leave you, but before I go, Hal, where can everybody find you?
At Hal Sparks almost everywhere. On Blue Sky, it's halsparks.com. And of course, infotainmentwars.com is the way to get to my YouTube channel and subscribe there. And then, of course, I have my Substack, halsparks.substack, which is the Hal Sparks Substack mega worldwide.
Oh my God, everything's mega worldwide with you.
It's true though.
You're big. That's what I'm saying.
I don't want to make this on such too grim note, but I just want to say my condolences. I know that you had a personal loss. I think one of your parents recently, and I just want to say I was sorry to hear about that news, and I hope hope the happy memories and everything else are a source of peace and comfort for you and your family. So.
I appreciate that. Thank you, and that means a lot. Cliff, I want to thank you again. Cliff rescued me. Gave me a sort of a day away afterwards. We went and had coffee and sat down, and it gave me a window back into the world after I'd been with my dad hospice.
It was my pleasure, Hal, and not to get too emotional here, but when you talk about paying things forward, I always point out that of all of my friends, there are two of them, and David was one of them. When it was my dad in 2013, I was heading back to New York, where he was in a hospital, and David was there numerous days to meet me when I was going to see my dad. And so I felt like, well, I happened to be close to where you were, and I was able to spend time with you. It's the kind of thing where when somebody does it for you, you realize it's so incredible. It's during a time that's so difficult for you. So I just wanted to do for you what David did for me. How about
I
that?
appreciate that. That means
And
a
I got to
lot.
go pick
Thank
up
you,
the
David.
kids. You guys, thanks.
Do it.
Hal, honor to be on with you. Thanks for
too.
being here. Cliff, great show as always. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, my friend. Take
All right.
care. And
Yeah.
Hal,
Cheers.
up to you if you want to stay for a few more minutes or you want to head out or.
Whoops, I lost audio for a split second
Uh-oh.
on you, but I don't know if you can hear me. Hold
Oh,
on.
now I can make fun of Hal
Once
again.
David left, I lost audio. I don't know if that's true of everybody or just me.
Can everybody hear us in the chat? Can you hear
Did
me
he kick
still?
me out? Is that what happened? Is this
I
what he
can
did on the
still
way
see
out
you.
the
Can
door?
you see
like
me,
a
Hal?
maniac. All right, hold on.
I would,
and then
why don't they give you something where you can do writing on the screen here easily?
I'm still in
So
here. I still
tell
still
Hal
got
that I
my
love
audio,
him.
still everything going the right way. Let's see.
No, that doesn't look
Audio's
like
still
it.
going. Yep, that's still the same
Hi,
one. I'm still making
Hal.
audio. I'll figure it out. But
We
in the
love
meantime,
you.
you can hear both of us? Oh, excellent. Thank you. Appreciate that.
But Hal, so you can hear both of us, but
I
Hal
don't know.
can't
Yeah,
hear
then
me.
I don't know why I wouldn't hear you.
And I don't know sign
I will
language. So
work
that's going to be
on
a
that
problem.
on my end.
Let's see.
Curiously enough.
Let's see what I can say. I have.
Okay, you put me in the in the
green room for a second. Let's see. This is if pens would just work, life would be much easier. Hal, I put you back in the green room. I don't know that did anything. And yeah, you still can't hear me, can you?
Yep. Nope. Somehow that went away. That was fun. Hold on. Maybe.
Well, shit.
Yeah. Curious. Let me. I might rejoin you. Hold on. That'll be the easy thing. I'll pop out and rejoin.
All right, we got to see what we can do. Agree on hand signals. We should have done that. Who's that? Alosher? Is that what the name said? Ali Osher. Alosher. Apparently, hand signals will be tough because I can't seem to read. And that is a challenge. I lost mine exactly 62 days. Where was that? Before. Somebody lost someone 62 days. I'm going to say, guess it was her father. Soulcraft. I'm very sorry. If I am understanding that correctly. Yeah, it doesn't. It's not much to say. It doesn't. It gets easier. You get through days where you don't think about it as much and whatever. But it never gets easy.
I'm here. Yay!
Hal, can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh my god! Because I was going to do this. I was ready with this. Watch. And here you're gonna have to read my handwriting, which I used to fail handwriting. That was a class for you kids out there. They used to have. I was gonna be like,
"That's right.
Hi, Hal. Can you
hear me?
Hal,
right?
Can you see this? But you can't read
yes.
that. So it doesn't really matter.
Right. That's right. There is a chat for for you and I to use on the software that you use. So
wait, is it the private one? The private chat?
Yeah.
Why did I not think of that?
I don't know because I didn't mention it yet, and so how would you know?
Well, because I'm on here a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you're saying on your thing. On mine, though, we have, I believe, a private chat and a public chat. So I probably could have.
There you go.
Yeah. So I didn't. I should have thought of it because I do this all the time theoretically.
Go figure.
And you'd think I know stuff, but you would be wrong.
Well, I am named after a computer, so I need to know
and I'm named after a big red dog. So we both have. I'm not really actually named after a big red dog, but it's a fun story to say I am.
You're named after a Tarantino character in that came out 2 years ago.
Yeah, that would be cool too. Now I'm named after tennis players. Anybody will get some kind now because you're going to look it up. So I would say you get some kind of free merch. But knowing that I was born in the early to mid 70s, if you were to look up, there were 2 Cliffs in the game of tennis. My dad was very serious about tennis and played sort of semi-pro and tournaments and things like that. Mm-hmm. And was going to name me Rod after Rod Laver. And my mom, if you know who he was, she's one of the greatest of all time in tennis. My mom was like, no. Right. So my dad was like, okay, who can it be? And looked it up. One of them became an announcer. So he's more known. But if you're not a tennis fan, you would know it. So and one of them is an Aussie. I see somebody saying that Laver is an Aussie. One of them's an Aussie, one of them's British. And they both were Cliffs, and they both were in the top 10, ranked in the top 10 at the same time because people used to name their kids Cliff back then. It was a name that was a popular British name, 100 years ago. And then it stopped. And here I am. But
Yeah,
there's a
and-
few ones. There's Cliff Burton out there. He's pretty
Yeah.
freaking cool.
Absolutely.
I mean,
The former the past bass player for Metallica. He
Yep.
died
I used to
early
brag
on.
about. I used to be like, "Hey guys, look, it's
have the
Cliff
same-
Huxtable." I'm like, "Okay,
Right.
no more, no more."
Yeah, I got you.
No, we don't talk about that one anymore.
No, definitely not. But I will say that there's a lot of parallels in how long it took people to wake up to Cosby or Weinstein or some of these other folks, in the same way that it took it. They keep trying to do and undo the spell that Trump has on.
You get it though, don't you? I mean, that's why I think we didn't analyze, those of us in the political
Mhm.
world didn't properly analyze things in 2016 when it came to Trump, because we didn't realize, I think to a certain degree, and maybe we should have after Reagan, and Jesus, Fred Thompson was a character actor. They elected
Right.
fucking Gopher. They
Yeah, right.
elected, they elected, who's another one? Sonny fucking Bono. Maybe
Uh-huh.
we should have realized that you don't have to actually be an impressive star. You just need to be
Mhm.
somebody who's famous. And Trump.
That's why I'm running.
That's well. Listen, with the congressional numbers, what they are, if there's an open district, get in there, man. You don't
Yeah,
have to do much, you'll win.
I know.
But that I do think, and he played this up the second time too, and that's one of the ways I think he won younger men. Is he played up the and nobody take this because it was white men too. So this isn't some racist comment. He won a bigger percentage, I believe, of young black men, young Latino men, but many more young white men. And it was all playing up the bling and how cool it was to be famous and the whatever. And young men are stupid. I was one of those once, I can tell you. No offense to any of you who are listening.
Right.
And we fall and so he got that, the fame plays into that. And I think that's where we lost a good analysis, because when you talk about Weinstein, Matt Lauer, Bill Cosby, Weinstein's a little different because he always kind of came off as repulsive. But I mean,
Right.
Matt Lauer on TV and Bill Cosby on TV were portrayed like choir boys. They seemed like the nicest guys in the world.
Sure.
They didn't seem
Well,
like people that would do
again,
that.
I have a valuable lesson from the 80s that I think you and I both learned early, which is I was told at a young age that that Cosby and Michael Jackson were the good guys, and Prince and Richard Pryor were the bad guys.
Yes, right.
And
If you
opposite,
curse, if you curse too much,
go ahead. Is the truth. The opposite was the truth. Like Richard Pryor and Prince never had sex with someone against their will.
In fact, both of them were known behind the scenes as being philanthropists.
Yes.
Richard Pryor helped out all sorts of people. Prince was just a horrible addiction to fentanyl, and he helped people and did so behind the scenes and did so much. And I mean, to me, that was easily the funniest moment. Because if anybody who grew up when Hal and I did, and Hal, you better, because I could sit here and I'd get myself in trouble, but I could sit here. I snuck, and yes, folks, I'm this old. I bought in like 83, 82, whatever it was, the records, and I had a record player, and I bought the ones Eddie Murphy Raw and all that stuff, and I started listening to it. I'm like, that's a fire, and that's a fire.
Comedian. That's Eddie Murphy, Comedian.
Yes.
Comedian came out first, and that was
so I bought both of those, and one of them he starts going off on Bill Cosby because he's like, he's talking about the story of meeting him. Glad to meet you. Nice to meet you. He's like, you shouldn't curse so much.
Yeah, right.
He's
You cannot say fuck to people.
Right. He's like, well, he's like, what does he say? He's like, well, fuck you then. I'm offended you called. You jello
Richard Pryor.
You jello pudding eating motherfucker. And have a Coke and a smile and shut the fuck up. Those are his ads back then. But
that was Richard Pryor's response. He was actually Eddie got upset because he was like,
he called Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor's like,
Richard
Pryor,
Pryor,
have a Coke and a smile and shut the fuck up.
And a smile and shut the fuck up.
But to me, the funniest thing is, so when he finally, after whatever the feud was, and you'll probably know better than me, the 30-something years that he was not on, he refused to come back and go on Saturday Night Live. When he finally came back, whenever that was, 2 years ago or whatever, and hosted it, he got up and he started talking about how times had changed. He's like, I want to know out there, how many of you thought that 30 years later, I'd be hosting Saturday Night Live and Bill Cosby would be in prison?
Yeah.
And everybody just burst out laughing because, of course, they knew the feud that he had always had with Bill Cosby. And I was like, but you know what? That taught us something else important too. As you're saying, like about Richard Pryor, about him, which is these fucking, uptight, white, family values organizations that are, oh my God, a nipple was shown, or oh my God, somebody said the word fuck. Maybe you should be more concerned about the predators in your ranks and the
Yeah.
rate, maybe
And
you
the
should be more
guns.
concerned about the Jerry Falwell Jr. With his pants open and pictures on boats with women and his wife with the pool boy and whatever. And what's, Taggart, like, what was it, Swaggart? Like,
Swagger.
I've
I have
sinned,
sinned
everybody. I've
against-
sinned.
I have sinned against you.
And I
Right.
was mixing them up. I was combining them. Ted Haggard, of course, was like, it was the
Oh,
drugs
yeah.
that did it. It was like, no, you're gay, and that's okay. But maybe
Yeah.
admit that. And
Right.
just the litany of these people who committed financial crimes, who basically convinced people that were literally on their last dollar to keep giving them money as they bought their 15th mansion and all that stuff. They're okay. But Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy, of course, because
Right.
they're black and they're saying
Yeah.
bad words, must be horrible.
Must
You
be
know,
bad
and like
people.
that American
Well,
morality for you.
I've said for a long time that I think the primary lesson we learned from Bill Cosby was never trust a comedian who won't say fuck.
I
And
learned from that is never trust a person who won't. If you won't
Yeah.
say, who that comes from a movie somewhere where somebody, I'm trying to remember, where somebody's like, I never trust anyone who doesn't curse.
yeah,
And I'm like, I'm sorry, but if you don't, then I feel like there's an inner uptightness about certain things.
yeah.
And I think you're going
Yeah.
to be the wrong
if you're
person.
if you're a priest or something like that, and that's your way of like, that's one thing.
That's
but if
different.
you live in the world, especially in comedy clubs, where
Yes.
you can say anything you want, not doing it points to either a shortcoming on your part, or a fear that if you start talking about it, you will never stop.
Right. And I'm saying to you, first of all, you were right in picking out obviously certain religious figures and folks like that. Yes.
Yeah.
Get it. It's part of the gig. Also, I'm not saying every circumstance is right. Like,
Right.
you don't get on a New York
Yeah.
City bus and step on and be like,
Exactly.
hey, motherfuckers,
Watch your
how are you?
mouth.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, no, there are times for it, but I'm saying somebody who like is the most moral, the most moral upstanding person they pretend to be. And like
Yeah.
to them, the worst thing is if somebody curses. And I'm sorry, but as we're seeing with Jeffrey Epstein and with people that were on boats that we blew up a second time and all these other things, there's a lot fucking worse things out there than saying
Yeah.
fucking worse.
Epstein
Okay?
was not known for using bad language
Yeah, exactly.
at all. As a matter of
Yeah.
fact, there are a lot of these guys point of pride that they that's what allows them to operate in pleasant company and do unpleasant things.
Right.
It gives them the illusion of respectability. Now, I also believe that you pick your battles, but in specifically in the comedian analogy, as it goes,
You're
a
right.
comedian is almost responsible for being able to say anything. Making a choice not to could be a bit in and of itself. Trying not to swear. Like there could be a really funny bit by Gaffigan or any of these other guys that are, relatively clean about trying not to swear. Like that's respect. And then that gives you a reasoning why they don't do it. And that they could be very funny about all the times, where they've had a hammer and missed a nail, where it's very difficult to not take the Lord's name in vain. In those
God
moments.
damn it.
Right?
Are you serious?
Right.
I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
again, I just,
Mhm.
sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. We all learned that when we were children, except for,
Yeah.
of course, then every one of these adults when we were kids made exceptions to that because apparently there were words that could hurt people.
Mhm.
And don't get me wrong, don't use the N word, don't
Yeah,
use the
right.
R word, don't use
Yeah.
the F word, and not fuck the F word as a gay slur. There are
Yep.
things that I will never use because they
Same here.
hurt people and they're wrong. But what I'm saying is that's the thing. The context of all these things matters. And if I'm using, the word fuck in a way that's disgusting and despicable about how somebody treated somebody and, a man treats a man or a man treats a woman or a woman, whatever it is, the relationship going on, there are ways you can use that word horribly. And then there's just, fuck, I just dropped that on the floor. And I'm sorry if
Yep.
anybody gets offended by that. You really, you need a hobby and you need things to get more offended by.
Yes. And the words that you use are meant to convey an emotion or a feeling. And if you use hurtful words specifically to convey a hurtful idea, then that's specifically why I don't use the words you were mentioning, because
Well,
you can't not. You
no,
can't
there's no context in which those are
right.
not
They aren't
aimed at
hurtful.
its
And
people.
I've got a lot better and a lot more words to use.
Yeah, how about trying to be creative and
right.
maybe
Yes.
coming up with something else? I don't
Well,
know.
that's again that's where they get mad, because they shouldn't have to be. See,
Well,
Cliff.
no,
Shouldn't have
who would want to be creative and interesting?
Why make these people want to make me use their words when I want to use my mean words?
No.
But again, these are
I
the folks
refuse
that
to write a column, Hal, where again, when I want to insult somebody I can't stand, I don't come up with my own multi-syllabic, multi-hyphenated insult by putting some words together that maybe have never been put together before. It's a
Sure.
matter of pride, and maybe it doesn't
Yeah.
work all the time. But God damn it, I'm going to try because
Yes.
it's
Agreed.
more fun than just
So
whatever.
the
All right.
problem, and in contrast to that,
Yes.
that consideration, and this ties us sort of back to our conversation about his response to Rob Reiner and Michelle Reiner's deaths, is that Trump is increasingly losing his grip on his ability to curtail those kind of outbursts.
Yes.
That the consideration you and I are talking about, if he ever really had it at all, even if as a point of political, as a safety valve just to protect himself, that's gone.
Well, you know what you're right, and all the if you look up some of these traits, some of the worst personality traits for someone who has some combination of narcissism on clinical clinical narcissism, and some whether it's antisocial disorder, sociopathy, whatever it may, but the things where you're inhibited in those areas are also the things that tend to get worse with dementia.
Yep.
People tend to lose control over impulses, which is a problem when you've got narcissism and you need to, so he's already always been bad enough in these areas. And now, I mean, I think where you're seeing it most clearly, to me, because he's done these ridiculous tweets like that for a while.
Sure.
They're happening more often now, but it's in the way he yells at every particularly female reporter that asks him even the most basic question and tells them they're the worst ever. They're a disgrace. They're, and feels the need to go off on them for about a minute or two. To me, that is so much in the dementia. He is just angry, resentful. He can't control his impulses. The paranoia is through the roof. Everyone's out to get him. All of these things are just swimming around. They're like sharks swimming around that tank in his head.
Yes.
With that little, whatever is left of like that one firing neuron, that is still there. And I mean, the thing here is, I read a piece recently, and I think we'll have to end on something happier. So we'll get to something happier. But I do want to say this quickly, which is the problem is I'm sure of it at this point. Again, the weaknesses are everywhere. We didn't even talk about when all the people breaking away from the 17 state senators in Indiana that told them to go take a hike, and all of that. But the problem is that when people who have that kind of damage started off with the kind of emotional and mental damage he had, and now you add this on top of it, they don't tend to go quietly into that good night. They thrash and they harm and we may be seeing that with Venezuela right now. And that's the real danger, is at what point are they just going to put a stop to this? The Supreme Court, the bunch of Opus Dei, whatever, I think they're all scared they could end up behind bars for things they've done. So I don't think they're ever going to do anything. I honestly think that if it's going to happen, it's breakaway Republicans in the House with a discharge petition. You get a vote in the House, and then the only way you convict him and impeach him, which is the way they almost did that second time, but McConnell chickened out at the last second, is that Thune, who now, because of the corporate gobs of money McConnell raised for these people, and now Thune is his heir. If Thune decided to bring along the 12 or however many votes that he pretty much owns and controls, that is the only thing that gets you even close, because there's some other, so-called moderates that aren't really moderate, Murkowski and Collins and some people like that I think would come along Maybe there's a few from the far right of the spectrum that would surprise you, like a Rand Paul or a whoever, because they're on the opposite side of things, are worried about what he might do, and because they're isolationists. And then Thune has to bring along 15 or so votes. And I mean, again, I would have said a while back this could never happen. I actually could see it happening now for the first time, because if they think real disaster, their political careers, their party going through an FDR like period of time, or frankly, their loved ones' lives, pretty much the only shit they care about, right? Their political careers, their families, things like that. If they're worried about them, I think that changes the equation. But again, it's not something I would rely on. I'm just saying if he gets bad enough, I could see it happening.
Yeah, I mean, Thune, as the senator from South Dakota, who, I mean, the state has less than 1 million people in it. Like, they're some of those guys feel protected in, that there's not going to be a Democratic upstart in South Dakota. It's just not happening. Right. And even if it was, enough money would pour in to just, overwhelm them, and the voter base on it. God knows what he actually won his seat.
Well, he also may be done. I mean, he was always going to be president, right? The tall, lean, good-looking, soft-spoken. He was the type of person that we elected president in the past. Now that no matter what happens, as we said, there's at least a 20% faction that are Looney Tunes MAGA types that they won't vote for someone like a John Thune. He knows it. So he can't win a presidential election. So does he really want this job very long? I mean, that's the question. Is some of these guys may go along with it because they may just be done, and we're seeing it right now with people announcing their retirements. I don't know. I don't know.
So I just looked it up because I was curious, but Thune won won South Dakota. He won by 69%, right? Like to the closest, the Democrat came in with at 26%, and then a Libertarian won 4%. So he's like, again, he's not going to have to move to.
Nah, he'll be fine. That. Yeah,
but the pink areas, the areas that were a little more awash, where it wasn't just rock solid, because he was like, 90%, 75% in a bunch of these areas, but around Rapid City, it's lower than what he won by. Around the areas, a couple of candidates, the Lakota counties, for example, the Democrat won. 68-23 in those counties, and there's a decent number of people in those, but like anywhere the population, where it's like, what is it, 8,000 votes total? Thune won 76%. So overall, he's going to scoop up because that's what South Dakota is. But this is not a guy who's shown himself to be able to convince, more than 1 million people that he deserves to be in charge of anything. Yeah, and he's
not today's Republican Party.
No,
you can't be him and win. You have to be. I'm not sure who wins because no one else has that weird right-wing cult charisma Trump has.
None of them.
There's plenty of people that are just as evil and loud and stupid as him, but they just don't.
Yeah.
In any case, why don't we?
Are we running into Tucker Carlson running against Thune and Rand Paul and Ted Cruz next time? Because that seems to be the
it could
noise.
be. Maybe that's where we should be looking at, is the media personalities, and maybe Tucker. Although the thing about Tucker is, again, like he doesn't have the sense of humor that Trump has, even though I don't. It's punching down and whatever, but he's not funny. He's just kind of a dick. I don't know if he could hold together the people that find Trump amusing and find.
Not at all.
So why don't we end on it? Because I wanted to stay this time an extra 25 minutes or so at least, because we didn't figure out how to get you on until about 25 minutes in. But I do have to go and I think do some things, even though I could talk to you all day, Hal.
I understand. Thanks for having me on. I greatly appreciate it. We'll talk again very soon, but I do want to say on a couple of fronts that, like, I think the biggest point overall is with the Epstein file stuff that's allegedly coming out this Friday, and we'll see, because if he holds back anything, the MAGAs are going to freak out. But again, whatever damage he is suffering in his losing his base and his numbers going down and this cascading impact, he believes, and I think rightly so, that what's in the files is worse.
Yeah. Oh, there's no doubt.
And that's going to be the defining characteristic.
As Andrea's saying here, I will
Mhm.
be on your show on Monday. So not only
That's right.
we can do a part 2 then, and it'll be after all this, and we can
Right.
see. No, I mean, what'll be interesting to see is once that stuff comes out,
Mhm.
what'll be interesting to see is if there is just an absolute stampede to retire.
Right.
Because again, I could see him immediately falling another
And
5 points, or I mean,
yeah.
maybe, and it
And
just
our job is to make all those people who are leaving and definitely anybody who's staying defend him. Like the
yes,
news media, anybody who asks, like, okay, explain this to me. How long would it have taken you to figure out Epstein was a pedophile? Would have been after 5 minutes or after the 10th party, the
yep,
the
it's pretty
20th
simple
year?
stuff.
Yeah, hammer it.
So we all hammer on it. We'll talk more about it on Monday. I want to thank,
Mhm.
obviously, David Schuster, always a great coach.
Yeah,
Hal, who's amazing, and I was lucky enough to get to see you again in person here for not good reasons,
appreciate
but
it.
I always enjoy seeing you, Hal, and
Yeah.
hopefully will if you come back over Christmas.
Yep.
Um, and thank you to all of you sparklers who were rated on over here and joined our crowd. I hope
That's
you
right.
liked what you heard, and will follow us, subscribe to us. We're at blueamp.co. Hal Sparks is at Hal Sparks. Come on, give it again,
Yeah.
because mega
Well,
worldwide, like
yeah.
destruction,
Yes.
ownership of everything, or I don't know. What is it?
Yeah, twitch.tv/HalSparks. YouTube, it's at Infotainment Wars. So if you go to infotainmentwars.com, that'll take you to subscribe there. And of course, halsparks.com on Blue Sky and on the web. Instagram, it's at HalSparks. I dumped my shitter account years ago, now, like over a year ago now, because I don't want to put money in the pocket of a nutcase like Elon Musk, but I'm everywhere else. So
There you
find me
go.
on there. Yeah.
Everywhere else you can find Hal, even skywriting.
That's right.
So thank you to the Sparklers. Thank you to my folks for being here, Cynthia and Jim. Moderating as always, Lawrence Winterman, my COO, who's amazing and makes this work because I have no intelligence in technology
That's
in
the
the manner
spirit.
which Hal has. And that's it,
Right.
folks. I think
Yeah.
from there, I
Appreciate it.
will sign off. And as I like to say from a movie, I bet Hal knows what it comes from. As the sun sets slowly in the west, my friends, I bid you a fond farewell.
Yes. Good night, and may your God go with you.
There you go.